What do you put in context on the day-to-day when you're trying to make the best decisions? Back into kind of a downward spiral of ineffectiveness and efficiency. The lessons I've learned, the challenges I've faced have led to these thoughts. What is your life purpose? What is your life direction? Who are you? People don't like embarrassing themselves. I've been embarrassed 100 times over in this process. And it's forced me to rewire my perception of losing and winning, that I'd rather lose than not be in the game at all. That baseline is formed by the decisions you make of what you want, the trade-offs that those have, and then it's just about doing it. At age 70, what do you want to say you've accomplished? At the end of the day, you do or you do not. There is or there isn't. And that's how life pans out. Results are results. Let's nail them down one at a time. In pursuit of trying to optimize life, really, and approaching each aspect of life one at a time, this week I've been really thinking about what do you put in context on the day-to-day when you're trying to make the best decisions. Because this past week, I've had lower extremes than usual. The past few weeks I've been really good, being productive, efficient, all that. Now this week I've fallen back into kind of a downward spiral of ineffectiveness and efficiency. Honestly, just not going for it in the same way I'm trying to, in the same way I've done previously. And as I've been thinking about it, I got thinking about the role of thinking itself, trying to look at the different powers at play, and I came down to two things I wanted to talk about, and that is the interaction between thoughts and behaviors. And when I say behaviors, I'm meaning agency, agentic behaviors when we choose to do something. First off, I'm trying to level with you, going through the problems I'm facing as a new young adult male in this new world, hopefully finding it relatable to you. Taking my own approach, obviously, I think about things differently. I think about things probably more than the average Joe. So that's the unique value I'm trying to propose. But in that process as well, trying to get better at presenting myself, get better at podcasting, and I don't know how to display that other than saying it directly on the podcast, which obviously a high tier podcast wouldn't do, but I'm just trying to get there. So thinking about Theo Vaughn and Stephen Bartlett, how can they create an environment that is more conversational, even though it's tough for me? So those are the things I'm working on, but I'm ready to get into it. So, back to the topic of conversation. I am simply just trying to establish myself at a higher level of living. Once you know better, you can do a little bit better, and as you increase your knowledge, then it's gradual. Kind of get tiered up, level up every so often. Obviously, I won't be perfect, but if I can establish myself in the good habits I know of and the life I'm choosing to live, then I can move forward from there. But you have to have a baseline, right? And that baseline is formed by the decisions you make of what you want, the trade-offs that those have, and then it's just about doing it. So those trade-offs I've had are, I want to be an entrepreneur. So I'm no longer looking for jobs. So settling into that means creating a day by day where I work, even though I don't have to. Along with that, I get to a place that's I'm making consistent money, even though I've made $0 so far. If I can make at least $2,000 a month, that's the place where I'm trying to get to. So entrepreneurship, and there's a whole slew of that. But that's the main priority, so that's what we can focus on right now. Mindset is attached to that. Being able to have a winner's mindset, determining what that is. Recently, in my thoughts and my experience, And noted, I've been at this for a year. I've been doing school with that last year, but now I'm done with school. I really haven't worked the last year. I have, but very little. And so I've been doing content for a year. And it's been brutal, honestly. But the lessons I've learned, the challenges I've faced have led to these thoughts. And they are that a winning mindset is about loving losing. Not loving it necessarily, but like being okay with it. Hormozy talks about it like an at bat. If you have a hitter that just wants to hit the ball, loving losing means that you're okay with getting struck out. It doesn't matter how many times it takes to swing and a miss. You're just trying to hit the ball. And obviously, people don't like losing. People don't like embarrassing themselves. I've been embarrassed 100 times over in this process. And it's forced me to rewire my perception of losing and winning. That I'd rather lose than not be in the game at all. I'd rather post a piece of content, be humiliated by, I know the people who are going to see it, my friends and even just acquaintances or past friendships, that it's just embarrassing because you know the content sucks. I mean, you try your best, but obviously there's limitations and you sacrifice quality for consistency and whatnot. And at the end of the day, you get that sinking feeling in your chest where you just want to walk off the field because you've been at it so many times. Swing and a miss, and you just can't hit anything. And that's what I've been dealing with the last year. And if you are on that same journey of putting yourself out there, trying to do something you've never succeeded in before, that is definitely going to be a problem you run into. And it's at this week, same timeline, that I've determined that that's what a winning mindset is being okay with losing and stepping up to the bat anyway. But I'll tell you why. And this is the resolution I've come with, is that your want to hit the ball, the pain of the thought of never hitting the ball is more painful than the pain of not hitting the ball. Basically, you want to hit the ball more than you want to not be embarrassed, really, is all it is. It's no longer a matter of what, it's a matter of how. What and if, say, what am I going to do? And if will it happen? So I want to make money. That's a what. And anyone has that what, really. So then it's a matter of if I will make money in this way, in this regard, or in this regard. So I could say, okay, I could make money doing content. Or I could make money doing a different thing. So if I try content and it's not working, then I try something else. But my what is I want to make money and I need to do it through doing content. And that's because doing content, it aligns with my long-term goals. And so now that I've established those two things, that I need to make money and it has to be through content, it's not a matter of what, it's a matter of how. So I just have to get better at content. I have to figure it out. I have to keep practicing my swing, learning from other people who have successfully hit the ball until I can do it myself. So that is a winning mindset, and that I think is how you gain a winning mindset. If we know something, just because we know something doesn't mean we do it. I've known all my life what it means to be honest, and just recently I've been finally understanding enough evidence that motivates me to be honest. So what this conversation has turned into is more of a documented journey of what I've been going through recently. And that is as a Generation Z young adult male who is trying to figure out his life, who has really high ambitions, and who wants to do the right thing, genuinely. So I want you to consider for yourself, in those three regards, where are you at? Well, what was the first thing I said? I said I'm a Generation Z male who has high ambitions and who wants to do the right thing and is figuring it out. So, yeah, those three regards: figuring it out, ambition, and wants to do the right thing. Let's nail them down one at a time. So, first, figuring it out. What is your life purpose? What is your life direction? Who are you? At age 70, what do you want to say you've accomplished? What drives your behavior? To what end are you getting it? That is a question extremely important that I think should be established before we talk about anything of what to do. Yes, people want to be healthy. Yes, people want to be happy. Yes, people want to be wealthy. But to what end? What purpose are you trying to serve? I'll give you mine. The purpose that I'm trying to serve in this life, I struggled with it for a long time. Nihilism is the idea that you believe in nothing. And I was born very religious. I grew up in a very religious family, so they taught me everything against that. But nonetheless, I still had a tendency to get over to nihilism. I wanted it to be meaningless so that I could do whatever I want, really. And I looked at everyone around me. I could see glimpses of truth, glimpses of something that was a valid pursuit, but it all seemed to be wrong in some way. And so I would look at a person in my religion that was basically at the top of their game, the most prestigious, the most well respected, or I would look at a superstar in sports or a very successful artist. And I always considered that each of those people think they're the best. And in some regard, they are. But they contradict each other. And so if this religion prophet, say, is the best, and he's self-claiming that he is the best and he's done life the right way, he can't live in the next life with the same other dude that's a prophet of a different religion, right? Someone has to be right, someone has to be wrong. And so, in that vein, according to that thinking, I thought, how sad would it be to get to the end of your life and realize the game you were playing was wrong. You chose the wrong game. Because that's what I see a lot of people do. A lot of my friends or acquaintances, they grew up in that religious mode, very unique culture, and they said, I'm going to go be the best person in this subculture of reality. And they went on that dream. And I thought, well, I see some merit to some aspects of that lifestyle and culture, but I also think it's not holistic. It can't be completely true. So how sad would it be to get to the end of your life and say, well, actually, I was playing the wrong game. Even though you got to the top of your game, you were playing the wrong game. All that to say, my life purpose and what I've deemed to be a good pursuit is to figure out what the game is. Everyone sees the world differently. Everyone has a different perception of what's real, what's true, what's wrong, and right. So my goal is to figure out basically the truth. That's just mine. I'm just wired for it. I think about it constantly. I'm not a scientific thinker, but I'm very conceptual. I go very deep. And that is a purpose that aligns with who I am, what feels natural and authentic, and my natural aptitude. And so the reason I bring that up is that you have to figure out those questions. What is authentic to you? What have you not been told but what's authentic to you? I love rap. Growing up, I was told that that was a terrible sin. Authentic to me still listens to rap. Do I find a reasonable argument that there is good rap and bad rap? Yes. But that's a nuance. Life is complex. Life is nuanced. And I'm willing to go into that complexity, into that nuance, and figure out what is true, what is right, what is wrong, rather than taking a black and white picture. I look at the gray because I love the gray. So the question becomes, what is authentic to you? That was authentic to me. What is authentic to you? And I think you can figure out that. I think everyone thinks about it naturally. If you don't, then take some time to. So connecting that with aptitude, I think, gives you a purpose. And that's something you just have to wrestle about. But that was number one. Number two was ambition. And the question stands, do you have an ambition? What is your ambition? Is it low? Is it high? In what categories of life do you have an ambition? Do you want to be wealthy? And what for? There's an interesting talk I read about desires, that you can educate your desires. So say that, this is all about, you don't necessarily have to shoot for the clouds, but if you analyze yourself and what's coming back to you in terms of answering the question of what do you want, what's your ambition, you don't really like that answer, you can change. If you like your answer of what you desire, what's your ambition, then there's no need to change, I would say, unless it's fundamentally evil. But if you're not loving your current ambition, if you don't think that you can attain all that you would in a fairyland could achieve, then it comes down to how can we educate our desires. And I think that's how I would answer the question of what is my ambition. In the context of you could achieve whatever you put your mind to, whatever you say you want in this life, what do you want? Not held down by expectations or your worldview or the past of how things have gone. If you could get rid of all of that and say, in a perfect world where I achieve everything I want, what do you want? And I think that is your real ambition. Usually there's a gap between what's real and what's ideal, and that goes in the process of educating your desires. I don't know a science-based approach in which you can educate your desires, but from personal experience and from what I've read, I think that the process requires you to let go of whatever conceptions you have about the world. Something I talk a lot about is perception, and the idea that every human wears a lens in which they view the reality. And that lens influences how they see themselves, how they see other people, and how they see the world, and the intricacies of how the world works. So that plays a huge part in our decisions, in our emotions, and our thoughts, because it determines how we think everything works, and what we can attain, what we can't attain. And the central thesis of this concept is that whatever lens we have on is wrong. It's not true, and in a lot of ways it's not helpful. So when it comes to ambition, in order to educate our desires, we have to try and change our worldview, our lens, to something that's more true and something that's more helpful. And I think the two are synonymous, as I've been thinking about it more and more. A lot of people would argue that they're not, but I guess the reason I think that both are true and helpful is that even if you've had the worst context, you're entering life, you got a terrible hand, everything, the odds are stacked against you, you can still accomplish things. And might I say, most of the underleveraged, underprivileged, odds are stacked against us is in our mind anyway. Because if you tell me you're dead broke, even if you have $1 million in debt, you can leave your country, go get a new start in some other country. It doesn't have to be America, just somewhere that's relatively opportunistic, and then dig your heels in and start making things happen. And I think each circumstance of a life is placed at an equal advantage and disadvantage than anyone else, but in different ways. If you're born without opportunity and you educate your desires to have a high ambition, you have a drive, a relentlessness, a sense of earnestness that is almost do or die. It reminds me of a story. I read an article. It was from a immigrant billionaire. I forget his name. I could look it up. But he tells the story of how he was speaking to his children. And he said, I have given them everything. Everything he could. But one thing he couldn't give, and the most important thing, was his hunger. I forget the word he used. Let me think of it. The word he used was desperation. That's the word he used. He could give his kids everything but his desperation because the kids didn't have it. They were blessed with the benefits of his hard work, the opportunity, the wealth, the better socioeconomic class, and all the slew of benefits that come along with that. And so that person perceived born into the worst circumstances has some advantage because they have that desperation that a person who was born into relative security doesn't have. Anyway, so those are the thoughts on the two first things. So assess your ambition and assess your life's purpose, what you want. So I'm trying to establish myself in my new level of living. We had 3 categories that help establish what that level of living is that you're pursuing. I explained mine. You can establish yours by assessing your ambition, assessing your life's purpose, and assessing how you're going to get there. What medium do you want? Do you want to be in finance? Do you want to post social media? And it aligns with your goals. I want to be able to think like this, produce content. I want to write a book, so I'm doing content. Maybe different for you. And then we talked about the 2 things that are getting in the way of establishing that new level of living according to your desires and what you know is right. So if I wake up every day, I know what I want. I know not exactly how to get there, but what steps to take to learn how to get there. And I know what that looks on a daily level, meaning I should wake up early, I should go to the gym, I should not scroll TikTok and social media, but I should work. And I should talk to my friends because it helps my level of emotion. Basically, the gist is that you have a general idea of what you should do every day. And the basic human flaw, for some reason, we don't do what we know we should do. And so I was thinking about what are the forces at hand that help me do what I should do, and what are the forces at hand that help me not do what I should do. And as I was thinking about it this week, the 2 concepts that came to the front of mind were thinking itself and agency. Because at the end of the day, you either do something or you don't, and that comes down to agency. No matter what I was thinking, no matter what I was feeling, you either do it or you don't. And I think, as I was thinking about agency, that everything else isn't necessarily serving that best interest. It isn't serving your agency. Because doing things, when you're doing the right thing, it's usually the hard thing. So your thoughts, your emotions, usually just get in the way. Because you lack motivation during the timely manner when you're choosing to snooze or wake up. That's where you have to pay the price of waking up, because it's harder then. You don't get the benefit of waking up early then. It's hard to even figure out what that benefit is. Maybe you see it later that day, maybe you see it in 10 years after you've been doing it for so long. But the odds are stacked against you when you're trying to make the right decision. And every day we make a slew of decisions, right ones and wrong ones, and we constantly have our mind going on in the background. We're feeling emotion 24/7, we're thinking 24/7, and most of that seems for some reason to be maladaptive in pursuit of good behavior and good use of agency. And I was thinking about that because I was at war this past week, facing those same issues. And the one thing, I don't have a resolution. I mean, what do you do in those situations? But I do think the things I've thought of is that humans are creatures of habit. We have momentum. It's always hard to get going, but you have to choose the hard thing, but it gives you momentum to keep going, is what I'm saying. At the beginning of the day, it's hardest if you haven't been in a habit to wake up early. If you've been waking up late, it's hard to wake up early. it's hardest to make the right decisions at first because you have momentum going the other way. So you have to shift momentum. And it feels like the thoughts, the emotions are always based on the past. It's based on the momentum you have going. So if I have a momentum of laziness, of distraction, my thoughts and my emotions are all going to be oriented down that road. It's going to be sleeping, it's going to be look at your phone, it's going to be turn on a show instead of work. It's going to be eat a snack that tastes good, maybe not as healthy as if you were to take the time to make a meal yourself. But then you'd have to ask the question on the flip side, are your thoughts, are your emotions more healthy when you do have your momentum heading on in the right way? And I would say probably yes, but then it would be an equal playing field in terms of it would be as easy to do the right thing as the wrong thing if your thoughts, emotions, and feelings shift to whatever momentum you have. But obviously it gears left, it's weighted left, it's weighted as harder to do the right thing. And maybe that's just in the nature that it's harder to do the right thing. Maybe it's the immediacy of immediate gratification doing the wrong thing. I don't really know. But either way, you come to the realization that the outcomes are the outcomes. The forces at hand, how, why you got there, doesn't change the fact of. And so at the end of the day, it's either you did it or you didn't. And no amount of analyzation, figuring out the why or the how, really plays into account. I don't think that's necessarily to say that you have to discount everything else, because I think there's merit and it matters, the why and the how behind everything. I also think that orientation of the thinking behind the actual result has an effect on the result. But at the end of the day, you do or you do not. There is or there isn't. And that's how life pans out. Results are results. So I think a good ending question for this conversation would be, what side do you lack right now? Are you on the side where results aren't an issue? You feel pretty good. You can get to the X or the Y or the Z, but it's about the framing. You don't know exactly where you're getting to. If you're in that group, then I would say that you need to focus on those earlier questions about finding your purpose, determining your ambition, assessing your desires. And on the flip side, if you feel like you're pretty locked in, you know who you are, you know what you want, and you've established your life purpose, then think about the dramatic reality of the results. Where are you now? What are your decisions leading to? The facts. And depending on which bucket you're in, it gives you a pretty good idea of what you should do. I would say I'm on the result side. I have the orientation, but I don't have the result. And I don't think more analyzation will get us there. I think it's time to dig our heels in and exercise our agency. Just do. Doesn't matter what you're thinking, it doesn't matter what you're feeling. At the end of the day, the result happens or it doesn't. And that's in our control. So that's what I'll be working on this next week. And as always, I'm documenting this journey with you, but facing the same issues. So subscribe to follow along and comment down something you want me, and comment below some topic you want talked about. And we'll go from there. I'll see you next time.